Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here today. I just finished watching Woooooo! Becoming Ric Flair, the Ric Flair documentary that was much publicized, put up on Peacock, on the WWE Network section. I actually saw commercials for the Ric Flair documentary over Christmas, watching things on NBC. So I think they're hoping that a lot of eyes are going to come upon this documentary. When I started this documentary, it gave me a lot of memories of the Ric Flair 30 for 30 that came out 5 years ago. I'm pretty damn sure the voice of the documentary is Jeremy Schaap from ESPN, unless he got released and isn't with ESPN anymore, and I honestly didn't know about it. But besides for the cartoon cutscenes that they did a lot of in the 30 for 30. This seems like Rick's even wearing the same suit. I know it's been 5 years since that documentary came out. I just recently purchased it on DVD for my DVD collection when I was going through making sure I picked up some completed needs that I need to make sure that I could say that I was complete. I haven't had a chance to check it out, but it really gave me a lot of thoughts of it, but it did go all the way up until 2022. There was a few storylines that the documentary followed that I really liked. The main one was the question of who is Richard Flair, who is Ric Flair, and who is he? Richard Flair was born into a life where he was put into an orphanage, and then he was sold to his parents. He doesn't think that his parents did anything wrong in the wrongdoing. He did have a chance to meet his real family. He had a brother come forward and say that they were related, and Rick believes that he only wants to meet him because he is Ric Flair, and he wasn't part of his childhood. He wasn't part of his growing up. He has no thoughts of ever meeting him. And, that's up to him. And he believes that his mom and dad, even if they aren't his biological mom and dad, are the people that raised him. And that's who he wants to believe that his family is. And that makes sense because it's his life. But, Rick was somebody that didn't come from, nothing. But when he got a taste of, being... was it a boarding school he went to? Is where he kind of got the push for his life, that he wanted the finer things in life that he would grow to be. And there's even some backlash. I remember it from the 30 for 30 that his parents, when he bought his first house, and he was buying his cars, is just kind of asking him, like, do you need all of this? It just seems like it's too much. And he felt like he had achieved big goals in his life, pushing forward and buying bigger and better to prove, how successful he had been. But the people that made him were looking at him like he was living amongst his needs, which he was, which he said that, he was, basically making $10 and spending 20, and what was keeping him alive was the fact that he wasn't paying his taxes. Another big storyline deal of the documentary was how close Rick has come to dying, and the ups and downs of his life. Where I don't know a lot about this story, but I have heard a lot about it, and once, I read about this story, I couldn't believe that I'd seen Ric Flair wrestle almost his whole career before finding out that, much like the La Bamba plane crash, Ric Flair went down in a plane crash, and we could have lost Flair basically before his career ever really, started to get rolling. How he lived through it, how he was able to rehab and come back and be a bigger star than he ever was before the plane crash doesn't really make sense. But we have him, living his life, and then basically finding success in wrestling, but because of the fact that he's pushing himself so hard, he has a life at home and he has a life on the road. And the wife that he had, which would be his older two kids' mom, basically pulled the plug on their marriage and basically said this isn't the way that this isn't what she signed up for. And he had a very publicized, very expensive divorce, and he was able to find his new wife, Beth, that he ended up having. Was it David and no, Charlotte and Reed with David of WCW fame was with his first wife. But him wrestling his entire career, and then his career coming to an end at WrestleMania 24, and then him trying to figure out, what the hell he was going to do with his life. This is when I think really, they don't have to give us footage, but they could have at least talked about the fact that, once his career was over, he wanted the spotlight so bad that he went to TNA and he wrestled for them. And I'm sure they have some people in WWE that were in TNA at the time that they could have talked about it. I'm sure Mick Foley is somebody they could have talked to. They definitely could have talked to Kevin Nash. But they seem like they don't really want to touch on that at all. Maybe they don't want to talk about TNA as a company until TNA is done. I know they touched on it in the, wasn't it in the Kurt Angle? He doesn't have a documentary on his DVD, but he does have like a talking thing. And I do remember them having an interview with Dixie Carter, who I guess is out of the wrestling business now. But maybe they don't want to talk about it because Impact is still running as Impact. And even though I don't even know what TV network they're on, I guess there's some sort of competition for some sort of their shows, and they don't want to give them any publicity. But they could have talked about the fact that he went out and he was actually wrestling after he lost his retirement match to Shawn Michaels to make ends meet, and was just trying to push. They could have talked about how he branched out and he got his own scratching lottery ticket in the state of Carolina. That was something they didn't talk about, but once they talked about his career being done, they talked about Reed, they talked about Charlotte. I thought the story that I had heard is that after Reed had passed away, that is when Charlotte decided that she wanted to try and pick up his dream and become a wrestler. In this documentary, Charlotte said that she was talked into becoming trained to be a wrestler, that they wanted to do it together, and that would keep pushing Reed to go along. But when Reed passed away from his drug overdose, that was something that really spiraled Ric Flair into a life of heavier drinking than he'd ever been in, to the point where WWE sent him to rehab to try and get better. They took him off the road. I believe that was back in 2016, which would led to him getting sick in 2017, where he came out of the rehab and started immediately drinking because of the fact that WWE said that he would never work there if he didn't go to rehab. But they never said anything about him working there if he drank after it. He said he got out of the rehab, walked across the street, put his chip on the table, and bought a beer. That's how fast he gave it up. And he actually flipped off WWE and basically told him to fuck off. But Ric Flair, one hell of a wrestler. I've already gone for 9 minutes just talking about the basis of this. I mean, honestly, if you're a wrestling fan, you probably already have Peacock because of the fact that it's only $5 a month to watch the WWE pay-per-views each and every month. To watch WrestleMania, well enough pays enough for it alone. When it was its own standalone pay-per-view, we probably paid $60 to watch it that one night. So I don't know. I sleep on some things on the network. I know there was something that came out last year that was kind of like mini documentaries on wrestlers. I think it was called Evil. I still haven't had a chance to check that out. There's a lot of things that they've put up on A&E over the last 2 years because I don't have the channel A&E. I haven't found a way to watch those yet. But this right here needs to go to the must-see top point of your list. It is a lot like the 30 for 30, but there's a lot more in there. A lot more to the talking heads. And like I said, I think it's better because of the fact that those kind of cut-in cartoon scenes, almost like the funnies back in the day. I don't remember if they moved or not, if they were just drawn pictures. I didn't really like that part of the doc, and that was the one thing that I think that I would improve. But the one thing I got out of this more than anything else is me doubling down. I'm not going to be able to go to WrestleMania this year because of the fact I'm already planning on going to Disneyland. And my first day where I go to Universal before the 5 days I spend in Disneyland, the day I drive down is actually WrestleMania day 1. Universal would be day 2. Honestly, more than anything else, I want to go to is it WrestleCon? Wrestle Reunion. It's WrestleCon. No. Yeah, the WrestleCon wrestling show. I want to go to WrestleCon more than anything else. I think I have got this from really listening to the Kevin Nash podcast more than anything else. About a month ago, 2 months ago, he lost his son, who was not a wrestler. But he talks a lot about that each and every show, about, what he's going through week to week, and him trying to get over it, how he's going to, try to get better. He just went through his first Christmas without his son. And then his first episode that he ever did was on Scott Hall. And it really got me thinking. Scott Hall's on my list of favorite wrestlers. I don't really honestly think that Scott Hall's in my top 10. He's a guy that I honestly wanted to meet for a long time. He was supposed to come to a show in the Bay Area that I was going to, where I was going to get a picture and an autograph from him. And he didn't show up to the show. And there was bad things put out by the company, basically saying that it was even his son that just he was in a bad place and he didn't come, and that's why he didn't get on the plane. So I never got a chance to meet him. Honestly, if I could really think back to it, I believe it was WrestleCon in Santa Clara, I could have met him, but his line was fucking long. Longer than long. Maybe you add to it that he got put in the Hall of Fame the year before. Maybe it was something like that. But I just put it off thinking that these guys are going to be around forever. And there's not a long list of guys. I've never got a chance to meet Arn Anderson. I've never got a chance to meet Kevin Nash. There's a lot of guys that I want to meet. I've always kind of put off meeting Demolition because of the fact they don't really look like Demolition anymore. But Demolition, my favorite tag team of all time. There's guys like that I want a chance to meet before I'm not able to meet them anymore. I've met Ric Flair twice in my life. Once, WrestleMania 30 at WrestleMania Access. It was horrible. Less than like 2 or 3 months later, I met him at a show in the Bay Area for WrestleFest. One of the best experiences I ever had. He wooed me. He threw up the 4 horsemen. He talked to me for seconds, but it made me feel like he cared that I was there and he was having fun that day. At least have a chance to meet those. So I don't know if it's going to be maybe like a SummerSlam deal where they do the Conrad deal, StarCast, that I would go out to that, or just make sure I'm going to Philly next year to be able to go to WrestleCon and meet a lot of those guys. That's what's high up on my list. But the Ric Flair documentary, beyond the point of being great. I wish they would have talked about TNA. Maybe even talked about, getting in trouble, no showing the Ring of Honor and stealing that money from the company and having to pay it back with high spots. That's a sticky situation. Maybe I understand why they didn't talk about that one. But, just him being in a dark place in his life. But they definitely emphasized the strong points of his wrestling career, even if it wasn't talking about, each and every title win. They touched on, him winning the Royal Rumble. That's when he won the championship. But they don't really talk. They didn't really talk about him, winning the first title from Harley Race. They didn't really talk about his battles with Dusty Rhodes. They didn't talk about his battles with Hulk Hogan when Hogan came into the company. It's not really about the fake stuff, if that makes sense. Not about, what happened in the ring. It's about what happened in real life. And it was good. It was beyond the point of good. It's better than Ric Flair and the Four Horsemen. It's better than the Nature Boy Ric Flair documentary that WWE came out with well over, probably 10 to 15 years ago. It's better than that for 30 for 30. It's definitely better than that Fortune DVD that TNA made that I don't think I've ever watched to this date. And if I did, I didn't make it through it. But any Ric Flair doc that's out there, this is what it wishes it was. It was a damn good doc. I'm interested to see if ESPN sold this to Peacock, if Jeremy Schaap doesn't work for the company anymore and he just picked up where he left off with the last one. But really good stuff.